I was absolutely fanatical about not imposing my values on my kid. I really did not want my kid to get their values from trying to please me, from what I thought was right, from being concerned that they'd get in trouble or that they'd have my disapproval. I did not want them to focus on that when they were thinking about their own values. I wanted them to think about themselves, their relationship to their own conscience, to their own inner compass, as I call it, the ethical compass. And the ethical compass has two arrows, right? It has one that points away from what we want and one that points towards what we want. And the don't do and the do, right? And so I want to always be exploring like deep questions with my kid. This is how I explore values. I don't tell them what's right and what's wrong. I know it's every time I do a post about right and wrong, people say you got to tell them what's right and wrong because they don't know. But I mean, how do you know? Honestly, how do you know? Because my parents told me, but how do they know? How do you know? How do you know what's right and wrong? Is it only by what other people tell you, or do you have a sense of it inside? And isn't that the most important thing in guiding someone, right? So I have these, what I call the self-reflective questions. And the self-reflective questions are what I explore around any issue that I want to think about the values around. Is it sharing? Is it doing hard work? Is it chores? Is it community spirit? Is it honoring ourselves and taking time to ourselves and holding boundaries for ourselves? Or like, what is it? Whatever we're exploring, I have the self-reflective questions. So in general, they are, what kind of person do I want to be? What are my values? What kind of relationships do I want? And what kind of impact do I want to have on my relationships and on my broader community and the world at large? And what kind of world do I want to contribute to? And I think about these kind of questions, and you can probably think of many more, right? I think about these kind of questions with my kid, and that's how we learn about life together. That's how we learn about relationships together. That's why one of my sayings is, I taught my kid to not interrupt by always allowing her to interrupt. I never said don't interrupt, it's not polite, because it's not true. Sometimes it's fantastic to interrupt. When you're having a really excited conversation and one person jumps in and then the other person jumps in, oh, it made me think of this, oh yeah, tell me. And everyone's like building on each other's energy. That's a beautiful thing to explore, right? That kind of dynamic when it happens sometimes. And different people have different communication styles, Some people don't like interruptions, some people can't stop themselves. It depends on so many different things. So we want to be open to like all the different communication styles there are. There's so much to learn about it. I didn't want to just make a boundary saying don't interrupt. So instead, I wanted her to feel what does deep attention feel like? And I would always make sure that I would tell whoever I'm talking to, if my kid comes, I'm going to have to take a moment. And so from that, she understood what deep attention was like. She understood about the flow of conversation, because she started to feel when our conversation would end naturally, and then she had her fill, and then she could go off and do something else, and then I could go back to my conversation. But if she didn't have the flow, we study this kind of stuff. Conversations are subtle and complex, and we've been studying communication dynamics and relationship dynamics for years. And now she's actually quite, prepared and quite informed about that kind of stuff, which is amazing as she goes out into the world and has a job and has a partner and has friends and does things, right? To have that kind of awareness is so fantastic. So that's why the self-reflective questions are so important rather than imposing our values. So think about things together. What kind of person do I want to be? What kind of relationships do I want? What kind of impact do I want to have on my relationships and on the world and on my community? What kind of world do I want to contribute to? What's the ideal world I can imagine? For me, it's about cooperation and connection and respecting people and meeting basic sustenance needs, so no one has to go hungry or homeless. That would be so beautiful. But I would never impose that on my kid. I would explore, well, what do you think? And I would mention one thing maybe and say, what do you think about that thing? And what do you think about that thing? So we get into like how to think about these different things. And it's much more interesting, first of all, than telling a kid what's right and what's wrong. And it's a longer process, of course, but also it ends up with the person owning their values. And that's what's so important. All right, everybody. So I encourage you to try practicing the self-reflective questions with your kids rather than telling them what to think, what to feel, and what's right and wrong. And then you become co-explorers of life, which is so wonderful. Co-explorers, I love that. And that's it. Peace out, everybody. Please check out my free course, Guiding Without Controlling, at meaningfulideas.com, and follow me on all the spaces at Meaningful Ideas, YouTube, and Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And that's it. Peace out, everyone.